Hello everyone, welcome to this video which supports the Monitor project Sport and Employability Monitoring and Evaluation Manual. I'm John Taylor, a lecturer in the Faculty of Health Science and Sport at the University of Stirling in Scotland. And this video is going to show you how to use the resources available to process survey data using the Excel spreadsheets and how to report the findings. The aims of this video are to introduce you to the resources that are available to help you process the survey data for your projects, show you how to enter data obtained from questionnaires into the Excel spreadsheets, show you the results that are produced by the spreadsheets, and give you some guidance on how to use the results. To allow you to get the best out of this video, it would be helpful when reviewing the video that you have available the following Monitor resources: the chapter from the manual titled Data Analysis, a copy of the Rosenberg Self-Esteem Excel spreadsheet, a copy of the example Rosenberg Self-Esteem Excel spreadsheet. These resources are available through the Sport-for-Employability website. You can also contact the team through the website if you need any further information. This video assumes that you have some familiarity with Excel spreadsheets, and you may wish to pause the video at times to look at the manual and the spreadsheets before moving on. You will see that there are 11 Excel files available. 10 of these are designed to allow you to process the data for the measures that are available in the manual. Once you've collected the data from project participants, you can use the appropriate Excel spreadsheets to process the data for the scales that you have selected. In this video, we're going to show you how to use the Rosenberg Self-Esteem Scale spreadsheet. However, the same process applies for all the other scales. You will note that there are two Rosenberg Self-Esteem Scale files. One is the blank spreadsheet that is ready for you to process your data. The other file, which is titled Example, has data already entered, and you can see what it should look like when you have entered all your data. We'll be using this during the video. Let us have a closer look at the Excel spreadsheet for the Rosenberg Self-Esteem Scale. So, when you open up the Excel spreadsheet for the Rosenberg Self-Esteem Scale, you can see that at the top we have the title of the Excel spreadsheet. It is very important that you open the correct spreadsheet and use the correct spreadsheet for the data that you have. So always check that you have the correct Excel file open. You will also see that there is the title of the Excel spreadsheet in the first row. So Sport and Employability Manual, Rosenberg Self-Esteem Scale. You will see that you have along the bottom 6 tabs. So the first tab that should open will be Data Entry. There's also Converted Data, Results, Data Output, Graphs, and Notes. The Data Entry spreadsheet, the first tab, is the only sheet you will be able to enter data. The other sheets are protected and you will not be able to change these. So if I click onto the Converted Data tab and just try to enter some information by typing in a number, it doesn't allow me to do that. So be aware that the data entry sheet is the only sheet into which you can actually enter data. It's also important to note that the graphs sheet is not protected. This is to allow you to copy the graphs and use them in a document or a report so that you can report your findings. Just for a little bit of information as well, the notes sheet at the end just has some information that you might find useful for completing the Excel spreadsheet. For example, it gives information about the Rosenberg Self-Esteem scoring system, which shows that the Rosenberg Self-Esteem Scale runs from a score from 0 up to 30, with the normal range between 15 and 25. So if we go to the data entry screen, you will note that there are coloured sections here. So the first section, coloured in green, is a place where you can provide some information about basic demographic information about your participants in the program, their sex, their age, their level of education, and so on. Moving along, there is a blue section. This blue section is for entering in data from the Rosenberg Self-Esteem scale itself. So when somebody fills out the questionnaire, you put the data. The blue section is for the before data. So at the beginning of your project, when you survey them, this is where you enter your data. And it's important to note, if you only do one survey, you can enter the results for a single survey into this section, and the spreadsheet will provide you with results for that group of participants. However, the spreadsheet also allows for data from after the project or at a later point in the project to be entered as well, to allow comparison. And the pink section further to the right of the data entry spreadsheet is for entering data that you collect at a later time point. In the Rosenberg Self-Esteem Scale, there are 10 items on the questionnaire. So there's a question about whether they're satisfied with themselves, whether they feel no good at all, good qualities, and so on. So there are 10 items where data has to be put in at the beginning, and then when you repeat the survey at the end, the 10 items need to be entered in again. Satisfied with self, no good at all, good qualities, and so on. If you look at the example questionnaire in the manual, you will notice that it's been completed by a respondent. You need to enter the responses from the survey questionnaire into the data entry sheet. It's very important to note all your respondents should be allocated a number. For example, the respondent in this questionnaire has been given a code of P01. Using this code helps you protect the anonymity of the respondents in the data. However, you need to know who this person is, because when you collect the second set of data, you need to be able to match the before and after survey data from the same person. Let's enter the data from this particular participant. So, participant number 1, we have given the code of P01. So we need to type in P01 into the questionnaire, and note that each row is for a separate respondent. Then we need to put in details for the sex of the respondent, and we can see that they have identified themselves as male. And there were 3 options there. Male was a 1, female 2, and other 3. Whichever box they've ticked, that's the number you put in the spreadsheet. So for the sex of respondent, because they had ticked that first box, we would type in a 1. Then we have the age of the respondent on their last birthday, and it indicates that they were 21 years of age, so we can type in 21. What was the highest level education that you successfully completed? In this case, the person has indicated the third item down, secondary school, so we would type in the number 3. For their ethnicity and nationality, there were 5 options. I will talk about this later in the video, but they ticked item number 1, so we would type in a 1 there. And then disability, the question on disability, do you have a long-standing illness or disability or infirmness? There were 2 options, yes or no. In this particular case, they ticked no, so we can type in 2 into the spreadsheet. That then completes the information about the individual themselves, their personal details. The next column in the spreadsheet is attendance. We can't complete attendance just now because this survey is being completed at the beginning of the program, so we don't know what their attendance is like at this stage, so we can leave that blank. We then need to move on and complete the self-esteem data. So this is the Rosenberg Self-Esteem question, and we've received data back from this particular individual who has ticked the relevant boxes for them. So for the first item, on the whole, I am satisfied with myself. They could have ticked strongly disagree, disagree, agree, or strongly agree, and in this case they've ticked agree. So in this particular case, we can type in for satisfied with self a 3. And the next item, at times I'm no good at all, they tick the first box, the 1, so they tick 1. And we can then go through this information, completing the information. So they have gone 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, correction there, 3, 1, 2, and 3. So that individual's responses have now been entered into the spreadsheet. We can now have a look to see what that's done to the other parts of the spreadsheet. If we go into the Converted Data tab, we'll see that information has been updated here. So we have P01, that was the information we put in about the respondent. They were male, 21 years of age, high school. So you can see that the converted sheet converts the numbers to a relevant response. We also see the information for the Rosenberg Self-Esteem score responses. You will note that these are different to what was entered on the questionnaire. So they had gone 3, 1, 3. However, the results have come out here 2, 3, 2. That's because the sheet has automatically calculated the scores for that particular individual. So you don't need to worry about the scoring, it does it automatically. If we go to the results page, the score for the individual respondent is calculated here. Based on the responses from respondent P01, the Rosenberg Self-Esteem score is 23. With the normal range for self-esteem being between 15 and 25, this respondent scores within the normal range. If we now go to the data output, you will see that the results are automatically being updated in the tables. The more data we insert, the more these tables will be completed. So what we now need to do is go back and enter all the data in for all the respondents that completed the survey. I've prepared one already. So this is how your spreadsheet might look once you've completed or entered in all the data from the respondents that you have received. We go down to P17, so we have 17 respondents here. It's important to note that some questions might not be completed by respondents. For example, one respondent didn't indicate their level of education. So in the column here, P15, respondent P15, didn't enter anything in for their level of education. If somebody does not complete a demographic question, their age, their sex and so on, just leave that cell blank or empty. That is okay. It just means that the data relating to this person will not be included in any analysis concerning, in this case, level of education. However, if they miss an item on a measure of self-esteem, i.e. they only provide 9 responses rather than 10, we recommend you do not enter the data from that project participant. Missing responses will result in incomplete findings, and this may provide inaccurate results. So only use responses that are fully complete for the self-esteem part, so no blank cells here, but it is okay if there happens to be a blank cell in this green section. If we go to the data output, we can see information here. So the tables down the left hand side are about the demographic information, about the sex of respondents, the age, the education, ethnicity, disability and attendance. You can see that the male respondents and female respondents, so 47.1% were male, 47% female, and one individual, which is 5.9%, indicated other. So we have that information down the left. The columns in the middle of the screen here show the information for the Rosenberg Self-Esteem Scale. So, if we look at this top table, for all respondents, there were 17 of them. The main Rosenberg Self-Esteem score at the beginning was 18.6. So that's the mean average Rosenberg Self-Esteem Scale. In the table below we get the information for the sex of respondents, so it's broken down by sex. So for the males, the average Rosenberg Self-Esteem score was 19.5, but it was lower for females, 17.8. You can use this data on this sheet to help report on the respondents in your program, and some of those findings might help you decide whether you need to make any changes to the projects. We also have the breakdown further down around education. So for those that were at university, although was only one of them, the Rosenberg Self-Esteem score was 16. For college, the average was 19.7, and so on. At this stage, we don't have any information from the after survey because we haven't completed that yet. If you go to the graphs, you can see that some information has been updated here. Again, down the left hand side we have the demographic information, the sex of respondents, on percentages, the percentages by different types of education, and so on. And the charts on the right provide the information of the average Rosenberg Self-Esteem score. So 18.6 for all respondents, and broken down by males and females it was 19.5 and 17.8. Again, you can copy these charts if you wish to report them. If you only want to take a single survey, this is the information that is available to you. However, the spreadsheets have been designed for a before and after survey, so after an appropriate period of time, you may wish to repeat the survey process and get information from the same respondents at a later stage. So it's very important at this stage that you're able to match up the respondents. So P01, you need to know who that individual is so that when you get the backup data, the follow-up data, you can enter in the relevant information around the after survey for that respondent. It is very possible that you will not get all the same people completing the after questionnaire that completed the before questionnaire. So if, for example, if your respondent P01 didn't complete the after survey, maybe they dropped out of the project or maybe they moved away, then you need to remove P01 from the spreadsheet entirely. So you only include the respondents that completed all the items of the questionnaire. If a respondent did not complete all the items, you will not get an accurate score for the respondent for the before and the after, and any comparison will be incorrect. At this stage of the process, you should also be able to calculate or identify what the attendance is from the different respondents. So in this particular case, we've worked out that if a respondent has attended 75 to 100% of sessions, they would be entered in as a 1. If they have attended 51 to 74% of sessions, they would be entered in as a 2. And if they attended up to 50% of the sessions that you've delivered as part of your program, they would be entered in as a 3. So this is what the spreadsheet would look like if you had entered all the data in for the before and after data. You would have the attendance figures in, and you would have completed all the information for each of the respondents. So in this particular case, we have 17 respondents in total that completed the before and after survey. The information has also been updated on the converted screen, and you can see here these are the percentage attendance rates for the respondents. So P01 attended 75 to 100% of the sessions. However, P03 attended only 50%. If we go to the results sheet, we can see that we have now the individual scores for each person before and after. So P01, who had a score of 23 at the beginning of the survey at the project, they now have an after score of 21. It's increased by 1. While that's actually a positive change, it's a very small change, so care should be taken not to emphasize too much around small changes in individuals. You can ignore the data on the right here. This is just used to provide further information for the data output sheets on the left. So in the data output tab, we can now actually compare the results between the before and after surveys. So if we look at all the respondents, all 17 of them, the average score for these respondents increased from 18.6 to 19.5. And it indicates that this is a difference or an increase of 0.8. Now, please note that while this is indicated as an increase of 0.8, it should really be 0.9. This is due to rounding. The after score was actually 19.47, which was rounded up to 19.5, resulting in the slight discrepancy. But just use the figures that are reported in the tables here. The sheet has also calculated a paired t-test to provide an indication about the level of statistical significance of the findings. The sheet shows the p-value, which is known as the probability value from the test, and whether the result is statistically significant or not. If the p-value is 0.05 or lower, then the result is statistically significant. If it is above 0.05, then it is not statistically significant. So for the difference between the self-esteem scores of all respondents, the p-value is 0.044. And because this is less than 0.05, it means that the change is statistically significant. This means that you can have some confidence that the difference in self-esteem scores between the two surveys represents a real change in the respondents surveyed between the two survey points. If the p-value is greater than 0.5, you cannot be confident that the change shown in the self-esteem scores is real. It is more likely the difference was due to chance and there is no real difference between the before and after scores. It's important to note that the p-value does not change the results in the self-esteem scores. You still got 18.6 for the before survey and 19.5 for the after survey. There is some more information in the manual on how you can interpret the p-values and report the findings of the t-test. Notice that the results of the difference between the males was not statistically significant. So the males went from 19.5 up to 20.1, which was an increase of 0.6. But the p-value is 0.305 and therefore is not statistically significant. However, for the females, their mean score went from 17.8 up to 19.0, which was an increase of 1.3, and it was statistically significant because it was less than 0.05. So we can be more confident that there's been real change between the two surveys for the females, but less confidence about the difference for males. It's important to note that sometimes Excel cannot calculate the p-value. For example, for the university figures, there was only one respondent, and therefore the p value will not work. Also, if we look at the ethnicity, item 3, there were 2 respondents, and while the p-value is provided for some, the p-value is not always provided for others. So be aware of the fact that sometimes, typically due to low numbers, that the Excel spreadsheet will not calculate the p-value or the level of statistical significance. Don't worry if that p-value is not there, you just don't need to report it. Then finally, if we go into the graphs page, again down the left hand side we have some of the demographic information. On the right hand side here we have some of the charts that you can use in reporting to compare the difference between the before and after scores. And there's the information for the males and the females. The males were 19.5 at the beginning and 20.1 at the end, and for females 17.8 at the beginning and 19.0 at the end. It's important to note that the sample sizes from the data tables are not shown in the graphs. If you copy the charts for reporting, it would be helpful to add the sample size to the chart. For example, in this top chart, you could actually type in at the end of the title, just put in brackets, number equals 17, and that provides relevant information there in your report. You could also indicate the p-values or indicate if it was significant or not significant in the report, but this information is not automatically carried forward. I hope you've found this useful and will help you process the data for your research projects. There's two other things to mention. One is on the ethnicity or nationality questions. You will note there are no labels to the answers to these questions, so they're identified as item 1, item 2, item 3 and so on. This is to allow you to identify what possible answers you want for these questions. So in the ethnicity nationality you can have up to 5 possible answers. So you can identify what those are in your questionnaire. And the same for the disability. The disability has got 4 items, so you could have up to 4 possible responses. But in the example we used, we have just asked a 2-item question, yes or no. Do you have any long-standing illnesses or disability or infirmities? Yes or no. And then in that case, when you enter the data, you only type in a 1 or a 2. It might be that you ask a question as 4 possible options. You might ask item 1, you might put in as an option. So the question might be, do you have a disability that impacts on your ability to be physically active? And it might be 1, yes, all of the time. 2, yes, most of the time. 3, yes, some of the time. Or 4, no. You get to choose how many items. That completes the presentation on using the Rosenberg Self-Esteem score spreadsheets. If you include other measures in your survey, you can use the same process to complete the other Excel spreadsheets. However, be aware that some of the other scales provide more than one score. Some provide multiple scores, so there are more output data tables. Let's have a look at this in the Social Skills Questionnaire. Okay, we're now in the Social Skills Questionnaire. You can see it at the title at the top of the Excel spreadsheet. If you go to the data entry sheet, you will see that it does not look too different to the Rosenberg Self-Esteem score spreadsheet that you completed. There is a green section for personal details from the respondents. There is also a blue section, which is for entering the before survey data, although there are many more items in the Social Skills Questionnaire than there was in the Rosenberg Self-Esteem scale. There are 29 in total, compared to 10 in the Rosenberg Self-Esteem scale. And there is also a pink section, which is for entering in the after survey data. Again, this has 29 items. So it doesn't look too different. However, if we go to the data output sheet, you will find more data tables. So the Social Skills Questionnaire provides 4 sets of results. So the blue one here is a total score for the Social Skills Questionnaire, and it includes the results from all 29 items. So you will get a mean before score and a mean after score for all the respondents for those 29 items. But this also provides a number of subscales. So it takes some of those items and provides an additional score. So in the section highlighted in yellow here, this is a subscale score for achievement, and it's the score is calculated from 11 items in the scale. There is a further subscale result called social, and this is calculated on the basis of 8 items. And then finally, to the far right hand side, there is a section here which provides a subscale for personal growth, and that's calculated using score from 10 of the items in the scale. So as you can see here, you have more data to be able to report on the participants in the program. As with the other spreadsheets though, you don't need to worry about doing the scoring. This is all calculated automatically. All you need to do is report the findings using the data that are presented. I hope this video has been informative, and I wish you great success with your projects. Goodbye.